Whether it's YouTube videos like mine, sick edits, or posts on Instagram, people really like to romanticize cycling in big, dense cities or in idyllic mountain passes and countrysides. But most people, including myself, don't actually ride in these places very often. A lot of our daily riding probably looks more like this. Rows upon rows of neatly built cookie-cutter houses with light to moderate traffic. This is the type of riding that I've done all of my life, and after spending some time riding in that hectic traffic and those picturesque countrysides, I have realized that there's a few ways suburban riding has made me a better cyclist that people very rarely talk about. Real quick, most of you guys watching this video right now aren't actually subscribed according to my YouTube stats. So if you end up liking this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can watch more fixed gear videos just like this one. It's completely free and you can unsubscribe at any time. This vlog is sponsored by Wabi Cycles. If you want to learn more about the bike that I ride on a daily basis, the only bike that I own, feel free to stick around till the end of the video to learn more about Wabi Cycles. After coming back to Suburban AF, Sacramento, California, after living in super densely populated AF Taipei, I found myself just working on my bike just for fun a lot more often. I just swapped out my components for black ones because I was curious of what it would look like. I must say that it looks pretty sweet, and I will be getting some new black components to make it official. And a few weeks ago, I disassembled and deep cleaned my bike because I was bored. And probably next week I'll chew my wheels because they've needed to be chewed for the past few months. All of this is possible in the suburbs because there's so much space for activities. Because there's so much square footage for me to use as my workspace, I find myself just naturally ending up working on my bike and taking better care of my bike. People don't have hoses and yards in the city, are you kidding me? Because of that, it just makes it a lot easier when I'm in a city to let my bike become decrepit and crunchy and poorly maintained, which defeats the entire purpose of even having these nice components in the first place. Also, the lack of good, reasonably priced bike shops in the suburbs forced me to become a better bike mechanic. I started riding off when I was 16 and in high school. I didn't have a job, I didn't have money to go to a bike shop. The only bike shops that we have access to here in the suburbs of Sacramento was a really pretentious roadie shop that overcharged on everything. It was one of those shops that would charge me 20 bucks for a cog and lock ring installation when I could buy the tools for just about that much. And so instead of relying on a bike shop all the time to do everything, I relied on myself. There's no faith gear here, there's no retrogression, there's no velo trap out here in the suburbs. What we got out here is RJ the Bike Guy on YouTube and a pipe wrench that we probably shouldn't be using, but that's the way I learned. A lot of times I had to make do with household tools because I needed to get to school and I was broke. And the environment of being in the suburbs and this lack of bike shops forced me to make do with what I have and become a better bike mechanic, so that now that thankfully I have the means to afford appropriate tools for the job, I can work on my own bike cheaper, better, and faster than taking my bike to a shop. And this environment of people having garages and big yards to work on their bikes means that there's a lot of really decent home mechanics in the suburbs. When I first started riding, my older brother and my buddy Min taught me a lot of what I need to know about the basic mechanics and how to put together a fixed gear using the best practices. Honestly, if it wasn't for them and teaching me how to work on my bike, this channel probably would not exist. And that's all made possible because the suburbs make it easy for us, make it necessary for us to be good mechanics. In Taipei, I lived in a windowless room that was 90% bed. There's no way that I'm building a bike in there. There's no way that I'm even cleaning my bike in there. Being in the suburbs and having all this space to store my tools and my spare parts and having all the space to just work on my dang bike allowed me to become a better bike mechanic. What's up, Mario? Good to see you. I am. I would shake your hand under any other circumstances. So I'm here with Mario, local Sacramento rider.
Hey.
So Mario, what is the best thing and the worst thing about riding in the suburbs?
When you're riding in the suburbs, I guess you gotta like really pay attention to how other people drive out here, because quite frankly, people aren't really the best drivers out here. They don't really take into consideration cyclists.
Have you had any sketchy incidents?
Yes. I've actually had an incident on an overpass going down it. There's no bike lane. I ended up being honked at and cut off plenty of times.
And would you say that it makes you a better rider because people are such, to put it lightly, ass drivers here?
I'd agree, honestly.
All right. Peace.
Ride reasonably dangerous.
That's a sweet bike, and I hope to see you around. Later, Mario. Drivers in the suburbs, no contest, are the worst drivers that I've ever seen. I've seen people doing some insanely stupid things while driving their car. I've seen people doing their makeup, trying to find the best song on their phone in their Spotify playlist for their road trip. And just the other day, while I was leaving my house, there was a driver doing 40 in a 25-mile-per-hour zone, and he just blasted straight through a stop sign at 8 a.m. no less. I've been in a car with someone that was eating a burger with both of their hands and driving with their knees. Now, if I was a traffic officer, with all the insanely stupid driving maneuvers that I see here in the suburbs, I'd probably be able to retire right now at the ripe old age of 24. And because there's so many bad drivers, if you ride in the suburbs a lot, you get really good at predicting bad driver behavior before they do something unreasonably dangerous. No, even worse than that, dangerously stupid. I'm sure you've had a similar experience if you also ride in the burbs a lot, but there are times where I was able to identify this car is changing lanes way too much, they're swerving just a little bit, I need to back off a bit, and then the next moment they're just completely driving in the bike lane. Riding in the suburbs forces you to be more aware, and it forces you to ride smarter. On that same note, sometimes it's not enough to ride smarter, and sometimes you come across some really entitled drivers, and it forces you to grow a thick skin. The fact of the matter is, suburbs aren't built for people, they're built for cars. So if you're a person on a bike, you're already facing an uphill struggle. When you combine that with the fact that there's a lot of really entitled drivers in the suburbs, ones that believe the road is for cars, ones that will honk at you just for being on a bike even if you're in a bike lane, ones that will pass by you at extremely high speeds, say 45 to 50 miles an hour, really closely, which is against the law, not that it matters, just because they want to scare you off the road, and some of them actually even want to hit you and make sure that you get off the road.
Damn.
I've had countless incidents in the suburbs where people are yelling at me or honking at me or come within inches of murdering me with their car, all because I'm on a bicycle. Because of that, you have to really grow a thick skin. You have to be able to take a stand and say, fuck y'all, I like riding my bike, I have a right to ride my bike, and you have no right to bully me off the road. So you learn to ignore all these people just so that you can enjoy riding your bike more. With that said though, sometimes tragedy does strike. In the suburbs, the bicycling infrastructure isn't always great. So a lot of times there aren't going to be sufficient bike paths, and bike lanes will be chopped up and are more of an afterthought when they're building the roads. On this overpass behind me, I used to ride this overpass every day to and from high school, and it didn't always have this nice painted bike lane that it does now. The only reason it has this painted bike lane in the first place is because one morning, a cyclist was hit from behind by a truck, and the cyclist died instantly. He was riding on the side of the road with the share the road sign like he should have, he was wearing a helmet like he should have, and he had blinking lights like he should have. But because of the lack of a bike lane, and because drivers here, again, are just unattentive, that cyclist lost his life. And the city only put in a bike lane on that road because someone died there. That's what it takes to have infrastructure put in. And the fact of the matter is, if you're riding a bike, a part of you has to reconcile with death. You are the bottom of the food chain out on the road when you're on your bike. People want to respect you. Some people want to outright kill you, or at the very least, put you in a wheelchair. All because they feel entitled to the road and that the road is for cars and not for bikes. So if you spend a lot of time riding in the suburbs, this is all stuff that you just kind of ignore. You come to terms with your own mortality, and you just stop caring about what other people think you're doing. And that makes you a better cyclist. Here's an example of stupid infrastructure. They have the bike lane, but they don't finish it. Now I have to go in the car lane. Like, just extend it. Another way riding in the suburbs can help you to be a better cyclist. Riding here is very relaxing. We are smack dab in the middle of the city and the country, so we have access to both relaxing rides of the countryside and the more stimulating rides of the city. Riding in the suburbs themselves, while most people would consider it very boring, it is a nice time to just pedal things slowly and chew on ideas and whatever is milling through your mind. Riding becomes a nice quiet time to kick back, relax, and unplug from the world. But in the suburbs, it's easy to just stick to boring but relaxing residential streets. Take things slowly, and if you want even quieter riding, it's even easy to get out to the countryside to get away from a lot of traffic and bad drivers. And the number one thing about riding in the suburbs, it becomes really easy to ride long distances. It becomes normalized. Because there's not much to do in the suburbs, it's a pretty boring place. That is, if you're not a parent. I find myself riding my bike a lot just to alleviate boredom. So if I get bored, I just hop on my bike and wander around. And because of suburban sprawl, things are so far spread out. Because it's just expected that everyone will drive a car, you have to bike a lot just to see something that isn't a beige house. The city center is about an hour bike ride away from me, but I do have access to this nice, quiet-ish countryside where the road just disappears over the horizon. And these huge tracts of land normalizes riding huge distances. In the suburbs, anything less than 20 miles is a stroll around town. 20 to say 40 miles, that's like a short ride. 40 to 80 miles would be considered medium to long distance. 80 to 100 plus miles, that's a long ride. Compare that to when I was living in Taipei, super dense city. My friends thought I was crazy for riding 30 miles a day. They thought 30 miles was a huge ride. And it did feel huge because the city is dense. But it's not the case out here. You can just ride forever and ever, and distances become smaller because of it. Speaking of making big distances feel smaller, having a bike that's just a lot of fun to pedal, like from our video sponsor, Wabi Cycles, does just that. Every one of Wabi's design choices are meticulously made to give the purest ride quality for the money, and Wabi executes those choices perfectly with their bikes handmade by master craftsmen in Taiwan, and a friendly bike shop in Denver, Colorado that's eager to answer your questions and get you on a bike you'll love. Wabi's relentless attention to detail results in Wallace, my 58cm Wabi Special, weighing in at a grand total of 17.5 pounds straight out of the box. That's well under 20 pounds for a stock bike with completely steel, lugged frame set, and no carbon components. And that weight isn't just for quoting and impressing other cyclists though, it results in the best riding experience that I've ever had with a snappy and lively ride quality that only top tier steel can bring. That pure fun makes it easy for me to ride my Wabi Special as my only bike. If you're looking for a bike that puts an end to your search for the perfect bike, consider checking out Wabi Cycles linked at the top of the description, as it really is the closest thing that I've ridden to a perfect bike. And Fixie famous shoutouts to Stan Strong 108, Ryan Witt, Julian Corona, Avalo, Gio Dezera, and Kruucks for helping to make these Fixie videos possible through their support on Patreon. Now remember, life is short, but don't make it shorter, so ride your bike every day to be reasonably dangerous.